please welcome our panelists this morning. First, we have Theresa Fang, VP of Supply Chain for Alpha Broder. Please welcome Theresa. Good morning, Theresa. Thank you for being here. Now welcome Trevor Neeson, owner and CEO of Logomark. Trevor, good morning. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much. All right. Now, please welcome Tammy Hoth. Tammy Hoth. I practiced that like 100 times, Tammy. Like literally, it's Tammy Hoth. So let's start that over again. Hold on one second. Hold on. I'm going to come back over here. And now, please welcome Tammy Hoth. Okay, Tammy Hoth, Executive Sales Manager of Cotton Candy Marketing.
Thank you.
Good morning, Tammy. I'm sorry about that. Okay. And now, last, please welcome Ross Silverstein, President and CEO of I Promote You. Good morning, Ross. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to talk today about a number of different things. We're going to talk about some of the challenges facing the industry. We're going to talk about what's working today, what's different about the next year than the past year, and how we can all be more successful. So please give our panelists a very warm welcome, and thank you for being so brave to be on this stage, because I'm going to ask some tough questions today. Okay, so before we do any of the questions, I'll give you the easiest question of all. Will each of you introduce yourself and let everybody know your background a tiny bit, what it is that you have done in this industry, how long you've been in the industry, but again, keep it to no more than, let's say 30 seconds or so. So Theresa, you go first.
Sounds great.
Oh, you're
Hello.
There we go.
Sounds great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Theresa Fang. I've been in the industry since 2005. I am the VP of Supply Chain for Alpha Broder's Hard Goods Division, and I manage the end-to-end supply chain.
Fabulous, thank you very much. Trevor?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trevor Neeson. I'm the president of Logomark, and I've been in the promotional industry since 1980.
Wow, that
probably makes me one of the oldest guys, yeah.
42 years.
46 years.
46 years?
46 years.
Oh, wow, okay, well, that's 46 years.
Well, sorry, 42 years.
So, see, already we have our first controversy. It's 42 years, right? Okay, 42 years. Phew, I was worried about my math skills there. But anyway, okay. Well, thank you, Trevor. Tammy.
Good morning. I'm Tammy Hoth, and I am with Cotton Candy. I'm the Executive Sales Manager for the U.S., and I've been in the industry for about 27 years, always on the distributor side.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ross Silverstein, and I'm from Boston, and married 32 years with 4 adult children. I started I Promote You in 1999. It was my 3rd career. I started with nothing but an idea. Now we have over 600 independent distributors that are affiliated with our network. We're not a network of salespeople nor a network of franchisees. We're a network of independent business owners who own and operate their own business and do so under their own name, and we work for them.
Great, thank you very much. So let's go in reverse order. Just give us a quick update. How is 2022 going for your company? What are you sort of seeing in the short term? Sales up, sales down. What's the dynamic? Again, in 30 seconds or less. We'll start with Ross and we'll work this way.
2022 is an extraordinary year for us. It looks to be a record-breaking year. I would say that going back to the pandemic, things were bad, obviously, in 2020. They picked up for us in October and November, and then some of you may remember at the beginning of 21, it was down January and February, but since then it's been on a steady increase throughout 21, but especially now in 2022. We are 25% ahead of where we were last year at the end of the first half of the year, and we're 15% ahead of where we were in 2019 pre-pandemic.
So those are impressive stats. Let me ask you, Ross, because as you said, your business is a collection of other businesses. How much of that is same-store sales growth, and how much of that is just adding new people? So how much of that is really organic sales increases?
The majority of it is existing affiliates growing their business. In the early days when we didn't have 600 affiliates. We grew to a large degree by adding more affiliates. Now, even though there are plenty more affiliates that join the organization, the fact that we have so many existing affiliates is really what drives the growth.
Great, thank you. Tammy?
2022 is actually has been a really strong year for us. Definitely we're getting back to the numbers that we were seeing pre-COVID. 2019 was a great year for us, and 2020 had started out in that same direction until it didn't. But we were really fortunate that we were able to pivot to PPE, and that carried us through for those hard months through 2020 and 2021. The great news is for 2022, we're really seeing mostly promo sales, which is a nice step in the right direction. So we're pretty positive right now.
And so for you, 2022 is above 2019 or at?
It's in line to pass by what 2019 was.
Okay,
Correct.
great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm curious, so for our audience, how many of you, by show of hands, and again, I know many of you won't raise your hands, but pretend to raise your hands right now and actually do it when I ask the question. How many of you are your sales equal to 2019 or above 2019 if you've been in the industry that long? So, oh, well, at least it looks like sort of ballparking half the room. So thank you very much. That's good to learn. Okay. So Trevor, how about you? How's this year going?
Matt, this year has been a really good year for us, especially the first 6 months. We really had a strong 6 months. Our sales grew by 38%.
Wow.
This year. Yeah, we had a phenomenal year so far, and I think it's because of the adjustments that we made to our inventory and to our product line as well.
So tell me more about that, because that's 38% is a big number, and you said adjustments to inventory and product. So, because certainly we all know the supply chain challenges. So how much of that do you think is the fact that you had the inventory, so when people needed the orders, they could order from you? And how much of that is new product categories? Like, how do you break out that 38% if you can?
So the good news for us is that the 38% is virtually 99% regular promotional product. Excuse me. For us, the change came where we were one of the first companies on the supplier side to really get into PPE very fast. And I'm kind of proud of what our industry did in the PPP world, because we were able to bring this type of product to the country far faster than the retail industry. And we were able to help a lot of people with masks and sanitizers. And I'm very proud of what this industry did.
For sure. By the way, I share Trevor's enthusiasm, and I do think it's an example of just how resilient our industry is, and also how creative is the wrong word, but how much we just find ways to solve problems. So when our customers face the issues and the challenges, I think our industry responded incredibly quickly. So I agree with you, and let's all give ourselves a round of applause, because I do think we helped lots and lots of people. So thank you for saying that. But so for your sales, though, this year, what do you think? Is it mostly the fact that you just have inventory because other suppliers don't? Or is there some new product category you're selling that's like the next fidget spinner, so to speak? Or what is the situation?
So I'm going to give a bit of a reality check as well.
Yeah?
I think everybody's up in our industry, and I certainly hope everybody is. But the reality check as well is that there's been a big increase because of inflation. And prices have skyrocketed. Product mix has changed over the last year. And so whilst we all may be very up significantly in our businesses, the reality check is I don't think the amount of units that everybody is selling is in comparison to previous times. However, like people said, the promotion industry was going to fall apart in 2019. Our industry pivots very quickly, and we all pivoted to PPE. Whilst we've all pivoted now to a different type of product in 2021 and 2022, we will adjust again as we go along. And that's one of the most fascinating things about the promotion industry, how fast it can change direction to meet the needs of our industry.
Agreed. And so you talk about products being different today than they were a couple of years ago, and you talked about inflation. And so are there different product types you're seeing distributors request than a couple of years ago? Are they higher price, lower price? Is it a new category? What's the difference, if you can try to help people think about what can they learn from that that may be different for them to bring to their customers?
Even now, I mean, listen, our industry was a major supplier to trade shows. We did a lot of trade show gifts, and in those days, we were called the tchotchke suppliers. I think it's changed today. People have a different respect for our product because now they're turning to us on how to entice people to come work for the company, how to take care of their staff at home. And so the change came about how many companies were sending these beautiful gift baskets to people's homes. And because it was so expensive to send these gift boxes to the employees and their clients, the price point that they chose to send was a much higher price point of product than what they would normally buy. And so this is going to continue for maybe another 6 months, maybe another 12 months, because trade shows are just starting to come back, but I don't see trade shows coming back fully till about the middle of 2023.
We're definitely seeing the same thing is where people are spending their money, they're definitely wanting a higher end, higher perceived value product. Given that budgets are still being watched very closely, you obviously want to give something that's going to have a lasting impression. And so we're definitely seeing the same thing.
Great, thank you. And so I want to thank all of you. And do you have more you want to say? Actually, I forget. What was my earlier question? I had some question. I started with all that, but I forget.
2022 sales?
Oh, yes. So share with us that.
I don't have anything further to add than what everybody else has said. Just piling on that 2022 has been a great year for us over 19. I think that it would have been probably better had we not had some inventory challenges. The supply chain was pretty challenging the past 18 months and starting to get better, but definitely that was labor and supply chain, I think, kind of inhibited us just a little bit.
Sure. And so since, Theresa, your company, although I know you're responsible for hard goods, but you also do a lot of course, wearables. You're a major, if not the #1 wearables company in the industry. So are you seeing a difference there? Is wearables growing faster than or slower than hard goods, or is there any major difference there?
I would say that we have our retail brands and we have our trade and fashion brands, and I would say that the private brands is very closely modeled to hard goods. So there's very, I guess, similarities there as far as lead time and inventory and levels and how long it takes to replenish. I think the retail brands have been slower to recover, and I think that's just probably because obviously they're trying to fulfill the retail side of the business before ours, so there's a bit of a hierarchy there. So I think retail brands has been a bit slower to recover.
But if I heard you right, not because of demand from distributors, but rather because of availability of their supply.
Because of their supply chain, correct,
Right.
yeah.
Interesting, okay, thank you. And so is wearables as a whole recovering slower than?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, wearables is recovering very quickly, but it's broken down into different sort of channels, and so I think the retail channel has been the most challenging.
Great, thank you. So let's switch
Matthew,
topics. Oh, yes, please.
I'm sorry. When you've asked about how we're doing, we all answered in terms of sales, and certainly that's important, but with inflation at, I guess it was 9.1% in June, if one's business really didn't change and it were a perfectly efficient market, your sales would be up 9.1%. So, question, and I also look at order volume.
Sure.
And our order volume is, while it's up about 14% over last year, it still lags behind the order volume, meaning order count, number of orders, in 2019. Now, we've seen a trend change in the sense that the percentage by which the orders in 22 are less than they were in 19 is shrinking. So that's good. We're getting back to that same number of orders. So I think that's also an important consideration, because if your order count's down but your sales are up, how much of that is due to inflation? How much is that due to something else? In our case, our average order size in 2019 was around a little less than $1,200. In 20 20 during PPE, when we had some huge orders, it understandably skyrocketed to around $1,600. It dropped in 21, as would be expected without PPE, but in 22, we're now back to around 1,550, just below the PPE year, and about 30% higher, 25% or so higher than what it was in 2019. And I think that goes to, some of it may be inflation, but I think most of it is due to the nature of the products that are being purchased. And people are buying higher end products, brand name products. There had been fewer trade shows. People are spending less money on the really inexpensive giveaways. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix, the number of orders and average order size.
Sure, no, I appreciate that a lot, Ross, so thank you very much for that. And in fact, as many of you on the panel know, I'm a metrics guy. Like, I love to look at certain metrics about the industry. And so I'll say, I guess, one quick thing and then one question. Well, I'll let you think about the question first. My question is, for your own businesses, what are the 2 or 3 key metrics you look at to get a sense of how you're doing and what the trends may be? And again, I think, Ross, you touched on a few there in terms of average order size and quantity of orders. But I'll let each of you think about what metrics do you use to judge how things are going at the moment. But also say, by the way, tomorrow morning, speaking of metrics, we're going to have on this panel, not on this panel, but on the stage, we have 3 great speakers tomorrow morning, including an overview of the State of the Industry survey that ASI does for Counselor Magazine, and some stats there regarding what's happening and all the dynamics. So our head of market research for ASI is going to be discussing on this panel what's going on with all those kind of metrics and facts that you can use to help your clients. That's the State of the Industry part for tomorrow morning. We'll also have a product review tomorrow morning as well, and we have ASI's news director, Chris Ruvo, on the stage as well, talking about some news issues in the industry. So the 3 of them are going to talk about a variety of topics I think will help you have a great day tomorrow. So again, tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. But let's get back to my question. So Ross, do you have any more to add about, like, are there metrics you use that as business professionals here, people can think about, gosh, how can I use that metric in my own business?
I look at 2 metrics in particular. One is the order volume, the dollar amount of booked orders. That is an indication of current activity, and it's also a leading indicator by 30 to 60 days roughly of invoiced orders. So order volume is important, and then invoiced orders is extremely important. While order volume is a leading indicator, invoicing is the reality. That's the top line of your financial statements. It's your sales. And we want to make sure that there isn't a leakage from orders to invoices or sales. And we want to see that the invoices are going out timely. And then, of course, the collection.
And what are you seeing payment-wise? Do you look at that in terms of the days it takes to get payment received, all those things? Has that changed a lot in the last 3 years, meaning today versus pre-COVID?
It is not for us, anyway. We have professional affiliates, and they stay on top of their customers. That's part of our job as well, to support our affiliates in ensuring that the customers pay timely, and we've not seen any meaningful change there.
Great, thank you. So Tammy, how about you? What are metrics you're looking at in your business?
Very similar to what Ross said, and I agree with him completely that in the last couple of years, our number of orders has gone down, but the value of each order has definitely increased, and that's because of the higher end products that people are asking for. It's also because of the value adds that we've put in addition onto these orders. So fulfillment, kitting, custom packaging, all of those things, adding that service to our clients and giving them the ability to still reach their clients or their employees has been a great value add for both us and our clients. As far as metrics that we analyze, we do keep our eye on the economy. If there's any big shifts that we need to be aware of, we make sure that our salespeople are a little bit ahead of that curve. We keep a very close eye on our margins, especially right now with the price increases that are happening a little bit more rapidly than ever before, freight surcharges, things like that. We try to stay ahead of those on the front side of the order because they're very difficult to recoup on the back end once the client has already received the goods. We also really keep a close eye on our employees and, try to keep a pulse on how happy they are. They're our most valuable asset. It's a really competitive market right now, and making sure that we are knowing how they're feeling and keeping an eye on what they need. Are they feeling isolated? So that's another metric that we keep a close eye on.
And so tell us more about what you're doing to work with your clients so that they are aware of the pricing challenges, or whatever you want to call them, and the difficultness of understanding visibility of pricing sometimes, including freight and all.
You really just have to be transparent. The price increases are not a surprise to anyone. I mean, they're seeing it in their personal lives everywhere they go. Grocery shopping, the gas pump. It's not a new conversation. And in many cases, they're experiencing it internally within their own organizations. Their manufacturing costs have gone up. So this isn't a new conversation, so just be honest and transparent. Make sure that your quotes, you don't have listed on there that your quotes are accurate for the next 90 days, because that may not be the case anymore. So some of our processes that we've had in place for forever may need to change just to stay ahead of the changes that are happening within the industry. Everyone's been really understanding. I really can't say that we've lost sales because of inflation. Their budget is their budget. It's our job to find products that fit within that budget and also have the value that they are expecting from us.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned kitting and fulfillment. And so do those dynamics, is that increased your margins or decreased your margins?
It's increased quite a bit. And a lot of it is attributed to the fact that there's packaging companies out there that are far more reasonable than they ever were before. The minimums are lower. And being able to add on those services of fulfillment, labeling, shipping, it's all areas where you can increase your margin. And it's a huge service to your clients. They're not having to figure that out on their own. There's some really great fulfillment companies out there if you don't have the capability internally to handle it on your own. And we've had really good success with it.
That's great. And so have you found also suppliers are much better at doing that? So if you're not putting together multiple products from different suppliers, are most suppliers now able to do direct fulfillment for you on an individual home-by-home basis?
Many are, and many will accept products from other suppliers as well, and they'll kit them for you. So be sure to ask all of your suppliers that you're working with if they can help you with that, because a lot have put that ability in place within all of their distribution centers. And if not, they can steer you to companies that they've worked with in the past that could also do the same thing for you if you can't handle it internally.
That's great. Actually, I hadn't heard that before, so I appreciate hearing that. And I encourage all of you, if that sounds interesting for you, as you're walking the show floor today and you have key partners you work with, ask them about their capability in that regard. So, well, thank you very much, Tammy. So, Trevor, how about you? We'll go back to my metrics question. What are the metrics you look at in your business and say, okay, this is how I know how we're doing?
So,
Or, let me add to that. I'm sorry, I apologize. And/or are there leading indicators that you look at that help you understand like what's happening in the near-term future? Sorry.
is that it?
Good. Now you can go. Sorry.
So as a supplier, we look at slightly different metrics as well. There's a new metric we have to look at. Obviously, we look at sales. We look at, like Ross says, the size of the order count, the actual size of each order. But we have a new metric that we have to really monitor that's far more serious than anything else that we have at the moment, and that is our labor situation. At Logomark, one of the things that we pride ourselves at Logomark is that we're really a customer service-oriented company. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we still have people who answer the phones and try to take care of those calls as quick as possible. The problem for us is that if we have 10 people not show up to work in one day, that can affect our production by as much as 30,000 units or more for delivery that day or the next day. And then if that snowballs to 2 days, suddenly you're out by 60,000 units. How do you quickly adjust, and how do you adjust back to getting your deliveries back on time? So one of the key metrics that we follow on a daily basis, the first thing we do every morning is how many people showed up at work, because that's critical at this point in time. Because it's no different to every other supplier. Everybody is having the same issues with labor.
Thank you. And certainly labor is one of the big issues. And in fact, I'll give you all a preview. My next question is going to be, what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing? Because we all know there's lots of them. There's the freight issues, there's inventory issues, supply chain issues, there's all kinds of stuff, inflation. So each of you could think about what issues you're seeing that are the biggest challenges you're facing. But then, Theresa, I want to hear from you. What are the metrics you use in understanding where your business is today and where you're going?
Sure. So I have a slightly different lens being on the purchasing supply chain side than everyone else. I mean, obviously, we're looking at sales. We're looking at there's metrics for everything in the business. If you can't, I'm sure you guys have all heard, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So you could go into analysis paralysis on any metric in your organization. But for me, something that we are watching closely is obviously all the inventory metrics. So we're looking at stockouts, we're looking at fill rates, we're looking at lead time, we're looking at number of containers, the fill rates of the containers. We're looking at the turns, because obviously inventory is arguably the most expensive thing that suppliers spend their money on. So we want to make sure that inventory is productive. So I would say from my lens, we're heavily focused on that, because so much of that inventory drives customer experience, right? So for all you guys, if there's no inventory to sell, then that's a problem.
So how do you balance the inventory turns and investment in having enough inventory with not having so much inventory that you end up getting stuck with it? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me. So aside, the counterpart to the metric, right? So you can scorecard things, you can look at your history, you can look at your current, but what we try to do is take that information and forecast forward and think about, what is the trend showing me? How can we best leverage the inventory efficiently? And obviously we have tools. So we have a very sophisticated inventory planning system that helps us determine the inventory in bands. So you can tell it, hey, these are my best sellers. We never want to be out. This is, the bread and butter of the business. And then you can kind of separate the inventory from there, and the system will help you direct the money into where it needs to go to make sure you have that perfect balance. I mean, it's very challenging for sure, but obviously we're not doing it on Excel. So
Yes.
Matthew, if I may add to that, and Theresa, you're 100% spot on. It is a challenge. One of the bigger challenges also is that the supply chain has moved out, even worse on the wearable side than what on the hard goods side. But even on the hard goods side, supply has moved out 4 to 6 months, and even longer in some cases, as the factories have also had COVID problems in China. So having to forecast 6 months out and then face challenges still in the port today is really a challenge, because it's a crapshoot every day.
And is it getting better or worse?
It has improved. I mean, container costs are coming down. They have come down significantly. Shipping has improved. The problem is that, China has such a strict rule at the moment of a no-COVID policy that if a couple of people have COVID in a factory, the whole place is shut down for 2 weeks. And like I said, the amount of units made every day just escalates. People don't realize what one person on a production machine can affect 3,000 units per day. And so it just multiplies so fast to keep it under control.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to that we're also facing some of those challenges. And so one of my goals for this year and into next year is just, kind of diversifying your supply chain, creating some redundancy so you're not in one channel. So, whether it's China or you're going to Southeast Asia somewhere, or you're trying to near shore or onshore, I know that concept is a little bit further out for our industry, because a lot of the inexpensive products is going to be really difficult to onshore. But those are some of the things that we're working towards to kind of alleviate and mitigate some of these issues.
That's great, thank you. And certainly we're seeing that for distributors as well. I think distributors are more active than ever in trying to make sure they have a sort of a group of suppliers they can call on, and less concentrated in any one particular supplier as they're trying to think about how they can manage their business. This is what I'm hearing. Maybe wrongly so, that's what I'm hearing from distributors.
So I'd actually like to ask you a question, Theresa. I mean, we've experienced it with our brands. You know, we have quite a few brands. We find that we're actually doing a better job of actually getting product in than some of our brands. They really batting to get brands in, and their lead times are as far as 9 months. Are you experiencing the same
Yeah,
thing with your
we're
brand?
definitely experiencing that. And do you think that that's because they're fulfilling their brands, like the retail brand sales channel first? Because that's what I think, is that, you know, they're trying to funnel some of that demand over to where it's making more margin than our...
Well, I think the problem came in that in the retail industry really got slammed at the end of last year when they couldn't get their winter goods into the stores in time. And the stores are sitting with warehouses full of merchandise across the country. So everybody cut back tremendously, and now it's starting to catch up, and they can't catch up fast enough. There's been a real shortage of product.
I think that's the thing about supply chain that people maybe overlook is the elasticity. It's not as elastic as just making a decision today is going to, you know, produce results in a month or 2 months. It's kind of slower to create the results that you're intending. So
for distributors who are selling programs where they need to know that things will be available, how do you two as suppliers deal with that and helping distributors have confidence that you will actually have the inventory they need when they're selling it?
It's a big challenge because the size of the orders has changed tremendously. I don't know if you've experienced this, Theresa, but you know, where we would have a certain product in a $30 or $40 price range where we may sell 10 or 15,000 units a year, we've actually sold 150,000 of that product this year. It's been so hard to gauge because it's been all over the place. So you bring in 20,000 units and someone calls you up and says, we want 20,000 units. Well, to replace those 20,000 units, because you had 6 months inventory on hand, all of a sudden it's going to take you 6 months to replace that industry. It is a real challenge, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing.
for sure, and I think that goes to, you know, kind of how can you position yourself for success? A lot of it is just communication, like be really closely communicating to your suppliers or your upstream customer, like really try to understand, like I mentioned before, the forward trend, not where you are, where you have been, but where do you expect to be? Because the more that you're telling your suppliers, you know, this is where I think we're going with this, the more that they can prepare. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to make the product for you and have it sitting on their shelves waiting, but at least they have some idea. And then you can also tell them, hey, like in this product category, I don't think we're going to continue in this trend. So don't stock up your raw material or whatever it is that you're doing. So I think that interconnectedness is critical for success.
Thank you.
Sorry, on the same thing, you know, I don't know, especially on the distributors, and it'd be an interesting question to ask the distributors, but one of the things that we're seeing is that because digital advertising has become so expensive recently, a lot of companies are switching back to promotional product and spending a lot of money on very expensive product to get their message across to their clients. And that might be a question to distributors. Are they experiencing the same thing?
That's a great question. And also, I'll remind everybody that we publish every year an ROI report for the industry. We do a whole bunch of market research on how effective products are in our industry, and we give you stats that you can use and slides you can use to go to your customers and talk about the exposure they get on a cost per 1,000 basis or whatever it may be, and how effective a t-shirt is or a water bottle is or whatever the product is that we're talking about. So I encourage you, use the ASI media that's available to you to help your clients have even more confidence about the ROI that they're able to get by using products from the industry. But I do think, so by show of hands, are you seeing customers, so raise your hand if you are seeing your customers or prospects rethinking their digital spend given the cost increase on that side, and think about how many of you are seeing that trend at all with your clients or prospects? Well, I see 0 hands, I think. So I would interpret that as either people aren't raising their hands like earlier, or not a trend. Although it's interesting, Trevor, because I would say I've read in outside industry stuff, so not in our industry, that in fact that trend is a reality, is what I've read on sort of the bigger market world. So you got a question in a moment, so good news, we're going to open for Q&A in about 2 or 3 minutes. But in the meantime, what I want to do is actually switch topics altogether. There's a whole bunch of other issues related to what we all hear clients are thinking about, sustainability of products, made in the USA, all that stuff. So we'll start with you, Tam, and then we'll go to you, Ross. Like, what are you seeing from clients, and then we'll continue over here. Do people really pay more for sustainability made in the USA? Is it not? What's the reality of that from the front lines?
We do get asked now more than ever for sustainable or eco-friendly items or items with a give-back component. The really nice thing, and thank you to the suppliers, you guys have brought in a lot more eco-friendly items or items that fall within one of those buckets. So it's much easier to give this selection to our clients. They're also far more affordable than they've ever been before. In years past, they would say, oh yeah, we want the eco-friendly stuff, and then they would see the price and it just wouldn't happen. So we have a much bigger product offering for them. It's in stock for the most part right now. I don't think that that's going anywhere because from a corporate level, they're being told that they need to have a certain number of spend within that category. And it's a whole new generation of purchasers who are very much more in tune with what's going on around the world, and they want to make a difference.
So what's more important from your perspective from end buyers? Is it sustainability? Is it made in the USA? Or is it quick production time? Or is it low price? Because you can't have all. You can't have all four of those things, right?
I have to say it's probably production time in most cases, but the one positive thing that has come out of this whole supply chain issue, which I know is very stressful for you guys and for everyone else, is it's given us the opportunity to press the reset button. People are not expecting to get things the next day, the way they were trained to get them for years in this industry, which is a really nice change of pace. The clients are starting to understand that they have to plan ahead. They cannot leave events till the last minute, and it's our jobs to make sure that we know what those events are moving forward. But that's the one positive I can take out of all of the supply chain issues. But back to your question, I do still think that timing is the most important. We get asked for sustainable items more often than not, but that's not a deal breaker.
Thank you. So Ross, comments from your perspective? If any, by the way, it's okay to say you don't really have much to add because I know we're close on timing.
Look, more people.
Microphone.
Sorry, more people are aware and are serious about sustainability. I get it, and I think people, everything else being equal, would prefer to purchase products that are sustainable. But pricing is a factor, and availability is a factor, and depending upon the buyer's commitment to sustainability, they may go for the more expensive item. Often they won't. I think there are plenty of suppliers out there that offer products that will fit most buyers' needs. And as sales professionals, your job is to, help the buyer find a solution. And it could be sustainable, it could not be. To me, I'm sort of indifferent. I mean, in my personal life, of course, it's very important. In business, I want to take care of our customers, and it's up to the customer to decide what he or she wants. I just want to touch, I know you want to go to Q&A, but very quickly, when you had asked earlier about the challenges, there are some things that we need to pay attention to: inflation, possible recession, not just supply chain, but how suppliers are handling production and communication and customer service, because there's an awful lot of frustration out there among distributors, and I fear there may be some burnout for some distributors, feeling that, I've been doing this too long, it's too hard, I don't want to reinvent myself or deal with this nonsense and so forth. None of that really, it's just the ebbs and flows of the industry. I will say, though, distributors think they have the hardest job in the world, the salespeople. I'm out in the streets, I'm hustling for business, and I finally get an order, and then the supplier screws it up. I don't buy that for a second. I think the only thing harder than being a distributor in the industry is being a supplier in the industry. They have immense costs that distributors don't appreciate, with inventory and equipment and labor and intense competition And I highly, highly recommend that every sales professional every so often take a factory tour to fully appreciate all the challenges that suppliers have to deal with. But for me, the overall concern or challenge doesn't change. My job is to take care of our customers, which is our affiliates. And Andy Grove, the famed CEO of Intel, wrote a book titled "Only the Paranoid Survive." And unfortunately, I sort of live that. I'm in a constant state of worry about my customers in my business, and I'm not fully enjoying and celebrating the achievements if there's some other issue that needs attention to satisfy a particular affiliate. Admittedly, it's not a healthy approach, and I don't think it's particularly fair to me, but I also think on the other side of the coin, that's what helps me be successful is in my company, is paying attention to the things that need taken care of. So those are my challenges.
Thank you. And I'll give you a heads up at the end. My last question for each of you is going to be, what is your top 2 or 3 success tips for everybody here? So one of yours might be to be paranoid, but what are the top 2 or 3 things, that, not answer now, but at the end, that you're going to suggest everybody to think about or do to be successful? So we'll do that at the end. We're going to let you guys answer the question about sustainability and eco-friendly and USA made and all that stuff, if you have anything to add, and then we'll go to Q&A. So if you have questions, please line up now at the 2 microphones. Don't raise your hand if you can't. We need a microphone right there. So there's a microphone right to your left-hand side. If you have a question, you can go to that microphone, and there's a microphone right here as well. By my lovely wife, Lee, and by my wonderful mom right there. So Mom Suzanne Cohn and my wonderful wife, Lee, they're near that microphone. There's also a microphone there. But one moment, so anything to add on the whole sustainability versus USA made versus all that other stuff question?
I agree with him. I mean, it's always going to be there. It's getting stronger, and as the younger generation come into our market, they definitely want to improve and change the world, and it's going to keep on growing. But at this point in time, I think it's a mix of both, and it's about maintaining deliveries, price, and sustainability, and you have to do a combination of all of them.
Thank you. Theresa, anything to add?
I would agree. I think that with the younger generation, same as what everybody else said, I would also caution, I guess, when you're looking at sustainable products, there are sustainable products, truly sustainable products, and then there's greenwashing. So you want to just be careful, do your due diligence, and research the products that you're buying. But I also say that for us, sustainability is super important, not just from the product side, but also from the manufacturing side. If you think about all the packaging that we're going through, all the inks and all the ink accessories and everything. So I think for us, we're really looking at it from product and manufacturing. How can we be more sustainable? And I think it's going to continue to be a pressing issue. I mean, just look at Europe. Like, it's not going away, so I think it's only going to become more and more prevalent in our industry.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll open the floor to questions. I want to remind everybody, if you have a question, go to the microphone, but also keep your questions fairly short, and this is not a time for you to make some long speech. So go ahead.
I usually make a long speech, so I'll try and keep it short. With the challenges coming from China and delivery, do you see any trend of moving manufacturing back to the United States with everybody asking? I had one particular client that ordered 1,000 lapel pins, and they wanted to be sure that the poly bags did not say made in China. Do you see any trend of coming back to America?
Says for our suppliers.
Manufacturing.
What do you see?
There will always be manufacturing coming back, and it depends on the type of product. Like, for example, in plastic, right now, it's probably cheaper to make plastic product in America because it's not labor intensive. It's more the cost of the equipment to produce that type of product. Unfortunately, in America, no different to the rest of the world, Asia has become the manufacturing hub of the world. To convert that overnight, first of all, the cost of doing that is exorbitant, and we just don't have the labor force. Believe it or not, even in China, they have a shortage of labor. They're actually trying to import labor from Vietnam. There's a massive shortage of labor in China just to meet their manufacturing needs. Right now, we can't even get people to work in our factories, let alone start up huge production plants. And that's why you're getting factories moving all over the world, even the car industry.
Yeah, I would just say, similarly, it's not going to be easy, and I think that some might come back, but given the product line, it really depends on the product line, right? Like we're seeing some semiconductor companies, like large semiconductor companies establishing plants in the United States, but like we don't have those kind of products in our industry necessarily, so I think we're still pretty far out. I think onshoring is going to be many, many years out, if it's even possible, to your point, with the expense. But nearshoring, that might be more of a possibility. But again, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to change your entire supply chain out of Asia.
Thank you.
Never mind out of Asia, out of China.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So other questions, if any? Oh, go ahead, right to that microphone there. And again, please keep it
Well, you
short.
indicated that your sales for the first half of 2022 were up. Where were your gross profit margins during that time?
Thank you. So for each of you, are margins up? And if you are willing to share, what are your gross profit margins for your in your case,
It's,
your products?
it's a great question. First of all, our margins are relatively steady, around 35%. It's what it has been historically. And again, that's a collection of sales from 600 different affiliates. But it's a good question in light of the inflation environment we're living in. Prices obviously are going up, consumer prices, that's what you pay attention to, but the producer price index that's of concern to the suppliers is actually, it was 11.3% in June and 11.6% in May, and a lot of economists look at that as a leading indicator of consumer prices and inflation continuing to rise over the next couple of months. And everyone knows that prices are higher at gas stations, grocery stores, automobiles, whatever. And now is the time to raise your prices. Do not let your margins get squeezed because of inflation. You need to raise your prices. Everyone else is doing it. Why shouldn't you? You need to preserve your margins. So I think that you should not let your margins go from 35 to 32 to 30. You can do the math, and that makes a big difference. So keep those margins up, raise your prices.
Thank you. Anybody, anything to add about margins?
I totally agree with everything Ross just said, and a lot of the ways to keep your margins up is to add those services that we mentioned earlier, fulfillment, kitting, any value add that you can tack onto an order will help your margins tremendously.
How about the supply side? What are we seeing margin-wise?
So we've been able to maintain our margins, and it's critical, just from an owner's point of view, I'll tell you now, you have to maintain margins. When you start to discount your product, that will be the end of your business because it's so hard to recover. And if you can, it's not about the volumes of sales that one does. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson, that turnover is vanity and profitability is sanity and cash flow is reality. And if one can take that into account and keep your businesses that way, you'll get through this, and we'll get through this like everything else that we've ever encountered in this country.
Thank you. Anything to add to that?
Totally agree with everyone.
Okay, so then I have a couple quick questions to wrap up, because we are gonna, the show opens in exactly 18 minutes, so we will wrap up here in about 8 minutes or less. So two quick questions for the end, and I gave you a warning about my question to very much end with, but if each of us were on this panel 2 years from now, and right, because like today we're talking about supply chain issues and labor and eco-friendly, et cetera, what will be the top couple issues we're facing as an industry in 2 to 3 years? Do you have any crystal ball predictions about the future? And I'm going to pick on Trevor, because you removed your microphone.
Okay, so inflation is a two-edged sword, and it's allowed, on the one side, people to recover their businesses in terms of dollar values very, very fast. And that's why, hopefully, all of you have increased your sales in terms of dollars. The problem on the other side is that the workers or the employees have suffered because of inflation. And they suffer because the cost of living, if you go to the grocery store, you'll see, never mind what they're telling you, 9.1%. You go look at eggs are up 33%. Their salary increases and the money that they got from the government in the last 2 years is evaporating very, very fast. And so what we're going to be facing as a major, major problem in the next couple of years is how do we adjust people's salaries, because even if you take it at the government's rate of 9.1%, to increase salaries across the board by 9.1% is nearly impossible for most companies. We'd have to put our prices up again, and that increases inflation again. So the challenge for most companies in this country is going to be how to adjust salaries to catch up to price increases, and how do we control price increases so that we don't have to do a massive price increase in salary.
Thank you. So again, let's keep it like 30 seconds or less. What's the things in 2 years that industry will be facing, on this panel kind of thing in 2 years? You have any comments?
I just have a comment on what Trevor was saying, that with the salary adjusting and costing is going to continue to have pressure. I think a lot of companies are going to start to, on the supplier side, are going to start to think about automation and what a role automation can play in their processes because of all these issues. I think sustainability is still going to be an issue a few years from now that we all have to address. If you just think about how much product we're putting out there and how we're manufacturing it and sourcing it, I think that that's going to be front and center.
Great, thank you. Tammy.
I don't have much to add after Theresa's statement. I do think sustainability is going to keep being in the forefront, making sure our employees are happy, and that ties to what Trevor said with salaries. I don't have much more to add than that.
Okay, thank you. And Ross, anything?
I don't have a clue what we're going to be talking about 2 years from now. I think 5 years ago, if that question were asked, no one would have said COVID-19. Sure. So the only constant is change. And one of my favorite business books is a short parable called Who Moved My Cheese? If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. If you've read it, I encourage you to read it again, because it's a nice little roadmap on how to maneuver through all sorts of changes that'll come your way, whatever they may be.
Great, thank you. So my last question, again, 30 seconds or less, because we really are getting close to time, is if you had 3 tips to share with the audience today on what they can do to have the best next 12 months, what would those 3 tips be? And Ross, we'll start with you and work right down the line. So Ross.
So one is take time every day to prospect for new customers. Your existing customers are not going to be there forever, and you don't want to be stuck in the cold without anyone to sell to. So one is prospect for new customers. 2 is what I mentioned earlier, raise your prices, sell at high margins. 3 is to watch your expenses, cut costs wherever you can. And to Matthew's point, it's my emotional makeup, the paranoia and the worry. I would not recommend it for anyone else. It's not a healthy way to go through life.
Okay, Tammy, how about you?
Do what you say you're going to do. If you've told a customer that you're going to get back to them by the end of the day, get back to them by the end of the day, even if you don't have the answer, just so they know that you haven't forgotten about them. Keep it simple for them. Buying promotional products is typically a stressful project for your client. They're buying something that everyone in their organization is going to see, so make it as simple for them as possible. They don't need to know how difficult it is on our end. Ross stole a couple of mine, so my mind just went blank, so I'm going to leave it at 2.
No, you can repeat one, but you got to give us 3. You've given us 2.
I've got to give you 3.
What's the third one?
Margins. I completely agree with what Ross said about margins. Do not lower your margins with what's going on in the world. That's a very hard thing to move back in the other direction once you've done it once.
Awesome, thank you. Trevor.
My first reaction is don't panic. people who panic normally make mistakes. Rather stop, pause, and think about where you are and what you have to do. And the most important thing, I agree with you, Tammy, you've got to maintain margins. You've got to remain profitable. Rather let your sales drop, but remain profitable. It's so difficult to turn a company around when you're not profitable. And so if I look at where we were 3 years ago when we were forced to shut down in California, where we are today because our whole company just stopped. We sat down, we restructured, and we're in a far better position than what we were in 2019 today.
Thank you.
I would say communicate often and communicate early. Make sure that everyone's on the same page. Don't underestimate the power of everyone moving in the same direction. I would say create business continuity plans. So to Ross's point, I'm a worrier. I worry all the time. I think about things like wakes me up 3 a.m. Okay, did I do this? Just think about what is going to happen if, for example, one of your key suppliers drops the ball. What would you do? Is there a product in a program that, you know, if something happened to it, how would you pivot? So try to create some business continuity plans. Hope that you never have to use them, but the companies that can do that are more agile, and agile companies are successful.
Awesome. Was that 3 or was that 2? I lost
I
track.
think that was 3. Communicate.
Okay, was that 3?
Probably,
Was it 3? Yes?
probably 3.
I'm
Don't
seeing some-
panic.
good news,
Don't-
Theresa. I'm seeing people nod yes, so we'll count that as 3. So first of all, let's give our awesome panel a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you very much.